Hello everyone, welcome to the final update of the 2025 ISDE. After 5 days of special test racing, it all came down to the final moto on day 6 to officially declare the winners of the Olympics of off-road racing. Here's a full breakdown on everything that happened on the final day of the 99th edition of the International 6 Days of Enduro. The first club race I've watched during the morning hours included U.S.A.'s Eric Stevenson. After 5 days of various brake problems and crashes, the rider based out of the Pacific Northwest was on his own in one of the final club motos of the day. Stevenson would get off to a decent start, running inside the top 10 in the early going. A hard crash on day 4 was evident in his riding during the final motocross, but he was able to push through during the 5-lap race, eventually finishing 12th and completing the 2025 ISDE. The next club moto on watch included Collier Martinez and Tanner Whipple. As the riders raced into the first corner, Martinez came out with a top 3 start, while Whipple unfortunately was tagged going into the second corner and would have to fight from the back of the pack. Martinez, who had suffered a hard crash at the end of day 1, would hound the lead rider for the entire moto, eventually finishing second, completing his first ever 6-day enduro. Whipple would make several passes to finish in the midfield by the end of the race. The final club moto of the morning included the remaining 15 U.S.A. men's club riders, who were all part of the fastest 40 club riders during the early part of the week. When the gate dropped, it was the U.S.A. import from Italy, Giacomo Redondi, grabbing a whole shot to the delight of the Italian crowd. Behind him came Thorne Devlin. Cole Whitmer was the next American, a few spots behind, along with Leighton Smale and Anson Maloney. Maloney unfortunately would fall early on and be run over by a couple of riders. Beaten and bruised, he would cross the checkered flag but go to the hospital with minor injuries, but will be okay. Up front, the race intensified as Redondi led the way with Devlin chasing him in second. Leighton Smale would come through in 7th as Lane Lorenzo was coming through the pack running in 10th. Cole Whitmer was chasing Italian Rudy Moroni in 12th, while Jaden Donners ran in 14th, as Will Seven Piper was on a charge in 17th. Right behind was JoJo Cunningham in 18th, as Max Gerson rounded out the top 20 ahead of Brody Johnson and Zane Roberts. Lane Whitmer was running just outside the top 25, while Ryder Tomaselli, Chase Landers, and Colton Shields rounded out the American contingent. It was a full-on display of Italy versus USA during the final club moto, as 8 of the 15 Americans in the moto were in their first ever ISDE, battling with the likes of numerous Italians that at one point or another have been part of the World Trophy and Junior Trophy teams for the host nation. When the final club moto ended, Redondi held off Devlin for the moto win. For the top club rider awards, Thorne Devlin would finish second scratch amongst all club riders, all while taking the C2 category win for the week. He, along with JoJo Cunningham and Cole Whitmer under Team Rabiconda, would claim second in the club team classification for the week. 4th through 7th in the team classification was Team GTBN, Missouri Mutters, Mojo SXS Racing, and XC Gear, while the Hugh Legacy team would finish 15th in the team standings.
It was quite tough between those 3 teams. Silver medal for the Rabiconda team.
Complimenti, complimenti, Dora!
In the final women's moto of the week that combined the women trophy riders and women club riders, it was a sea of red, white, and blue up front as all 3 USA trophy riders were in the top 5 around the first corner. As the field started to spread out a few corners later, it was Brandy Richards leading the way with Corey Steed running in second. Australia's Danielle McDonald followed in 3rd, while Italian Francesca Nocera ran in 4th, as Canada's Shelby Turner rounded out the top 5. Rachel Gudas chased from 6th. At the end of the first lap, the top 6 were the same, while the leading women club rider Ava Silvestri had climbed through the field and ran 7th. Ellie Windland and Ashley Gage ran 13th and 17th at the end of the first lap of action. At the beginning of lap 2, Richards and Steed were gone as McDonald lost the front end while running 3rd. Nocera would inherit the spot with Turner climbing into 4th and Gudish moving into the top 5. Silvestri was closing from 6th as Windland and Gage were moving up the ranks themselves. Silvestri would tip over just before the end of the second lap, losing several positions in the process. At the beginning of lap 3, while running in 5th, Gudish would go flying off the bike. She would remount in 9th. On the final lap, Richards held the lead over Steed while Nocera was thrilling the home fans running in 3rd, while Turner was holding off McDonald for 4th. When the race ended, Brandy Richards took the moto win, thus locking off the women's scratch ISDE once again. Corey Seed would come through in second. As Gudish crossed the line in 8th amongst trophy riders, USA officially captured their 6th Women World Trophy classification victory, tying them with Australia atop the leaderboard. Ava Silvestri would be the fastest women club rider in the Moto, and with the final finishes of Ellie Winland and Ashley Gage, the USA captured the Women Club classification honors for the 2nd year in a row.
Coriste del Motocross Women Club Team Award.
Come on, Brandy.
E da premiarla il winner Motocross Scratch Woman. Chiamiamo ancora la signora Milena che è qua appunto per Brandy Richards la medaglia. La squadra femminile campione del mondo e sono gli Stati Uniti!
United States of America with team manager Antti Kalonen, Brandy Richards, Rachel Goodish and Corey Steed. Congratulations girls on your victory at the 6 Days Italia 2025.
E come ha detto Antti Kalonen il team manager poi
2025. Time for a picture.
In the final junior trophy moto of the week, it was once again red, white, and blue up front as the riders raced into corner number 1. When the riders entered the center portion of the track, it was Matteo Oliveira with the lead ahead of Australia's Kyron Bacon. USA's Grant Davis and Cooper Jones would run 3rd and 4th. At the end of lap 1, Oliveira had pulled a gap while Davis was hounding Bacon for the runner-up position. Jones still ran 4th as Italy's Kevin Cristino rounded out the top 5. When the riders completed lap 2, Davis had moved by Bacon into 2nd as Oliveira still led the way, and Jones still ran 4th with the Italians chasing him. Early into lap 4, Davis was closing on Oliveira ahead of him as Bacon was losing touch to the 2 Americans out front. Jones was doing everything he could to hold off Cristino, but the Bergamo native was not letting the Pennsylvania rider have any breathing room. At the end of the lap, Cristino had moved past into the 4th spot. Jones still wasn't off the hook as he had another Italian, Alberto Algari, chasing him from behind as well. As the moto concluded, Matteo Oliveira would win the final junior trophy moto of the week ahead of Grant Davis. Kyron Bacon was 3rd ahead of Kevin Cristino, while Algari would make the pass on Jones to round out the top 5 as Jones would finish 6th. When Manuel Verzaroli crossed the line in 10th, it locked up the Junior World Trophy classification for the home nation Italians. When the World Trophy riders were lining up for their final moto of the week, all eyes were on the battle between Josep Garcia and Andrea Verona, as the Italians still had an outside shot at the individual scratch win should anything happen to the 4-time defending Spaniard. When the gate dropped on the final moto of the 2025 ISDE, it was Dante Oliveira with a convincing hole shot as the field headed toward corner number 1. As the riders came to the center portion of the MX45E circuit, Oliveira already had a 3-second lead over the rest of the field. The rest of the USA Trophy team were mired in the back of the pack after bad starts. At the end of the first lap, Oliveira was all alone out front while Poland's Kimi Koskinen got off to a brilliant start running in 2nd. Verona ran 3rd ahead of countrymate Samuele Bernardini, while Spain's Alejandro Navarro rounded out the top 5. Garcia ran 10th, while Josh Toth was in 25th, as Cody Barnes ran 30th, and Johnny Gerard was in 37th. As the race wore on, Oliveira would pull a massive gap over the rest of the World Trophy riders. Garcia had moved up to 8th early on in the second lap, as Toth, Barnes, and Gerard were fighting through traffic, hoping to make up ground. Halfway through the moto, Oliveira was long gone. Koskinen still ran 2nd, while Bernardini was hounding Verona for the 3rd spot on track. Morgan Lesiardo of Italy ran in 6th, as Garcia was making a pass on Sweden's Max Allin to move into 7th. Barnes was on a tear as Gerard had moved past an ailing Toth with just a few laps remaining in the moto. With a couple of laps to go, Dante had no one in sight behind him, while in the back, Barnes railed around the outside of France's Hugo Blanjou as Girard and Toth were following Barnes through the order. When the final moto of the 99th ISDE ended, Dante Oliveira took the win by 25 seconds over Kimi Koskinen. Bernardini was third as Lesiardo and Verona rounded out the top 5. Joseph Garcia would cross the line in 6th, locking up his 5th straight individual scratch ISDE victory. Cody Barnes would finish the moto in 15th, while Johnny Girard would cross the line 19th, and Josh Toth would end the moto in 25th. When Italy's Manolo Moratini finished the moto in 21st, it was enough to clinch the World Trophy team classification for the home team as Italy takes their first World Trophy win since they did it the last time on home soil in 2021. That's going to do it for the 99th edition of the International 6 Days of Enduro. The 100th running of the Olympics of off-road motorcycle racing takes place next year, October 12th to the 17th, 2026, in the Grandola region of Portugal. Thank you for watching, everyone, and I will see you next year for the 100th running of the International 6 Days of Enduro.